Hello, welcome to the first episode of Love's Science. I'm your host Jade Zhang, and today we're going to talk about caffeine. So I'm currently sipping on an espresso, but don't worry, it's decaf. If I drank real coffee, I'll wake up at 7 a.m. I'll fall asleep at 7 a.m., so that's not helping. So caffeine hits me like a truck, and even small amounts linger in my system for hours. Meanwhile, my lab mate can down 2-3 espresso shots all day and late at night, but still can sleep like a rock. So what's the deal? Today we're going to go deep into the science of caffeine, like how it keeps you awake, how your body processes it, and even how plants weaponize it like chemical warfare. So what is caffeine? So caffeine is a stimulant alkaloid with a purine backbone. This is found in coffee, tea, or other plants naturally. Coffee beans, tea leaves, cacao, that makes up chocolate, guarana, yerba mate, they all naturally have caffeine. Some plants have caffeine, like Coffea arabica, which is the coffee bean for Arabica coffee. This is a natural producer of caffeine as a defense against herbivores and competition. So caffeine is toxic to insects at high concentrations. These insects exposed to caffeine show disrupted neurological activity, like tremors, disorientation, and death. It can inhibit enzymes like phosphodiesterase and insects that leads to accumulation of CAMP and cell stress. Caffeine seed coats or nectar can deter herbivores or confuse pollinators if its concentrations are too high. In coffee, in plants like Coffea arabica, Camellia sinensis, which is tea, use caffeine both in soil to inhibit seedling competitors and in tissues to deter consumption. So in a way, caffeine is a plant's chemical territory marker. Like, this is my patch, back off. So how does caffeine actually work inside us? Caffeine is a competitive antagonist of adenosine receptors, especially those of A1 and A2A subtypes in the brain. This adenosine is a neurotransmitter that builds up over the day, which promotes sleepiness and reduces neural activity. So because adenosine builds up as you go through the day, working, exercising, whatever, that you feel tired, you feel sleepy at late night, so you actually go to sleep. But this caffeine fits into the adenosine receptor, but doesn't activate it. So it blocks that sleepy signal, that you don't feel sleepy. But there's more. Adenosine normally inhibits dopamine and norepinephrine release. So first, by blocking the adenosine, caffeine lifts the brakes, and as a cascade effect, it increases dopamine level, which works for reward and alertness, and norepinephrine level, which works with arousal and attention, especially in, this is a little technical here, but bear with me, nucleus accumbens, prefrontal cortex, and locus coeruleus. So I think these are the parts of the brain that these hormones work into. But again, dopamine helps you have an enhanced mood, motivation, and alertness. Norepinephrine has affects us by having increased heart rate, focus, or that fight or flight type style activation. So caffeine's not giving you energy. It's hijacking your brain's internal chill out switch and stepping on the gas instead. All right. This hits people differently, like a caffeine sensitive guy like me versus those who are not. The key enzyme to this difference is CYP1A2. Cytochrome P450-1A2 is the full name. It's a liver enzyme that breaks caffeine into paraxanthine, which is the main active metabolite, theobromine, and theophylline. So the genetic polymorphism in this enzyme gene effect is if you have a fast metabolism, it breaks caffeine down quickly, so the caffeine's only a short buzz to you. But for slow metabolisers like me, caffeine lingers for a long time. It contributes to long stimulation and, of course, sleep distribution. So while I'm jittering into the sunrise, 7 a.m., my colleague with their third espresso shot at late night, perfectly fine, regular sleep schedule. There are also other influences to this metabolism, like hormones, estrogen hormones. So during pregnancy, or if you take those oral contraceptives, those hormones slow metabolism, so caffeine will be more effective to you. Smoking increases that CYP1A2 activity, so faster breakdown. So caffeine is less effective for those you cigarette smokers. Also, age, diet, liver health also play a role in varying degrees. So because I drink decaf as a caffeine-sensitive guy, I wanted to learn more about decaffeination methods. The two main methods are Swiss water method, which is chemical-free. As a chemist, everything is a chemical, so I don't know how valid this term is, but just go rolling with it. And ethyl acetate, which is solvent-based method. So, starting from your green coffee beans, the Swiss water process uses osmosis and solubility gradients. So these green beans are soaked in hot water to dissolve caffeine and flavor compounds. The water is passed through a carbon filter that captures only caffeine. Then those new beans are then soaked in the same flavorful water, so flavor is retained while caffeine is extracted. This is organic friendly, no so-called chemicals involved, but this is expensive and it's not 100% caffeine free. About 97% of the caffeine is removed. Next up, we have solvent-based methods. Typically use methylene chloride or ethyl acetate, which are actually naturally found in some fruits, so they're not like artificial. So the beans are steamed and rinsed with these chemicals, and then these solvent bonds with caffeine so that they get removed from beans. Think of how soap is rinsed with your hands so that your germs and dirty viruses are rubbed off. Beans are then steamed again to remove residual solvent. And this is a cheap and efficient method. Methylene chloride and ethyl acetate, it doesn't have to be super concentrated or anything, but they're cheap chemicals. And all it takes is just rinsing and steaming. Now, some people worry about the residues of those chemicals, though this is FDA approved. So we have scientists, experts who tested and proven that this method is safe for your body. But still, I get it, using quote-unquote chemicals has posed some concern. There is a slight flavor loss possible, so bear in mind with that. Think of it like dry cleaning coffee beans with cool chemistry. Now, there's some other less common methods like using supercritical carbon dioxide at high pressure. This is very clean. It has minimal flavorful impact, but it's very expensive. I don't know how much your countertop decaf capsules have used this method. Probably not. There's also this triglyceride process where beans are soaked in hot water and coffee oils to draw out the caffeine into the oils. So the oily molecules, the fatty acids, will be those that are extracting the caffeine molecules off of the beans. This is less common, obviously, and it's used in some specialty processing. I guess not really in my coffee machine. Now, I want to know is caffeine like caffeine free, or is it zero caffeine? And the answer is obviously not. Like the Swiss water process only takes up like 97% of the caffeine away and stuff. I don't know if there's any method that actually takes 100% of the caffeine off. So typically when we say caffeine free, we're talking about less than 5 milligrams per cup. Caffeine is tightly bound in the bean matrices, so it's hard to fully extract. And we have this thing called extraction equilibrium. So if we actually remove 100% of the caffeine, this would strip off the flavor compounds or damage the bean structure. So what's the future in this decaf industry? Well, if you have better filtration techniques, so to more selectively bind caffeine, decaffeination will be better. If you can have gene-edited coffee plants so that they naturally produce low caffeine beans, or think of molecular imprinting filters to target caffeine even more precisely, because we have all this molecular engineering happening behind the scenes at research facilities that work on these. Does decaf taste worse? Science says, and based on my experience, and especially coming from the coffee purists, yes, kinda to be exact. So some flavors inevitably lost, especially with the solvent methods. Caffeine itself is slightly bitter. So removing caffeine will alter the flavor balance, so it tastes different. Roasting plays a big role. So if the roast is here to decaf, then you can actually taste better. Bad decaf is often just bad roasting, but good decaf, it's out there. Trust me, I'm trying all kinds of different decaf coffees out there. Some are better than others. I don't know, I just don't want to sleep at 7 a.m., so I'm just sticking with the decaf. Now, coffee is not the only plant or drink has caffeine in it. The next common, arguably more common in terms of the worldly context, is tea. And especially in an East Asian, South Korean guy like me, I grew up with tea. So let's talk about tea. So tea, all real tea, green tea, black tea, oolong tea, white tea, you name it, they all come from this one plant called Camellia sinensis. Caffeine levels vary by type of this tea because you have different brewing processes. Green tea has about 20 to 40 milligrams per cup. Black tea has 40 to 7 milligrams. Matcha has more than 70 milligrams per serving. Oolong, again, about 30 to 50 milligrams. Just for reference, espresso coffee, you have about 50 milligrams, give or take, depending on the flavor and the beans. So, teas also have similar amount of caffeine. Fun fact, the longer the leaves are oxidized and brewed, the more caffeine is extracted. So comparing green tea, which is about 20 to 40 mg, then matcha, which has more than 70 milligrams per serving, you know that matcha is very oxidized and brewed. Adding a little bit of cultural context about South Korean me, 녹차, green tea, and 보리차, barley tea, are culturally huge. Barley tea, 보리차, is naturally caffeine-free, and they're often served in homes and restaurants. So there are few drinks that can be replaced with water, and at least for my family, as I was growing up, this was 보리차. Barley tea was the drink. We don't drink just water. We drink barley tea. I also found out that 국화차, which is chrysanthemum tea, and 대추차, which is jujube tea or dates. They're caffeine-free and traditional types of tea. I haven't really drank those. I kind of know that 대추차 or jujube tea, mixing with some other medicinal herbs and plants, they're pretty good for your cold and immune system. Chrysanthemum tea, I think I've seen it somewhere, but I've never really tried. But anyway, one thing about this tea is that it doesn't really have that blocking sleepiness effect like coffee does. Tea also contains L-theanine, which promotes calmness and modulates caffeine's buzz. So this gives you smoother onset and less crash. So tea actually gives you a calmer alertness compared to coffee. So it's like chemistry of caffeine plus some, chilled companions. So I think historically, tea was more spread out and widely drank in East Asia. That kind of explains why each age traditionally emphasized calming or restorative effective drinks versus the Western world emphasis on stimulation. So if we can talk about the philosophy and the cultural effects of drinks, this is definitely worth more than a whole episode. So let's save that for later. Someone like me, even coffee's decaffeinated cousin can mess up my sleep. But tea, like those Korean herbal teas, they feel more like a mindful ritual than a chemical jolt. And maybe that's a reminder that caffeine, like science, isn't a one-size-fits-all. That's it for today. Let me know what kind of experiences you have with caffeine. As of now, I only have my LinkedIn available, which isn't even complete. I'll update that. I'm just getting started with everything. But I plan to expand ways that you can connect with me, so stay tuned. I have some other ideas I want to do for the next episodes, like the Maillard reaction, which is the browning effect when you grill or sear meat. UV radiation from the sun to our skin. So, sunblocks, suntans, sunburns, you name it. The history of air conditioning. Good prayers to William James Carrier, the inventor of the modern air conditioning system, to survive the crazy record-breaking heat we have these days. Again, thank you for listening. This was your host, Jay Jong, and see you next time.